I think in English conditions, England are always competitive. We haven't lost a 5-match series since 2001. The Aussies beat us in 2001. We haven't lost one since. So, England are clear favourites to beat India, but it all depends on the conditions. If the condition, I don't think this week will be an English-style week. It's going to be very, very warm, and it might be subcontinent-like at times. And I'd be amazed if India don't pick Kuldeep Yadav and Jadeja to play this week because of the conditions. And that's the way I would go against this England side. But, over the course of 5 matches in the UK, the ball will move around at times. And that's generally where England get the upper hand. They generally have seam bowlers that can pitch the ball up and move the ball around. And that's always been the challenge once we've been overseas, bowling with the kookaburra ball. And that's been the problem in Australia. But, Australian wickets that I've seen over the last 2 or 3 years are a little bit different. There are pitches. You go to Sydney, Perth, Melbourne has nibbled around a little bit the last couple of years since that monstrous knock by Alistair Cook. The kind of deck got ripped up. So if there is lateral movement, England will be very, very competitive with the ball in hand, whoever they play. If the ball doesn't move and it's quite a flat week, you look at this England attack and go, who's close to Jasprit Bumrah? No one. Who's close to Pat Cummins and Stark? No one really in the England setup. That's why it's really important that Wood and Archer are fit for the Ashes series in a few months' time.
I think as you spoke on there, there's been an emphasis over the last couple of years for England about pace. Rob Key's spoken so much about how they want bowlers of a certain pace coming to Australia, but you look at Boland and how well he's done it in Australia over the last couple of summers. It suggests that maybe England don't need to bring, they don't need an Archer or a Wood for every single game in Australia next summer.
Well, I think the most important aspect and skill set that you require against the Aussies is lateral movement. I'm not saying lateral movement at 78 miles an hour. If you can get lateral movement at 83 to 85, I think you bowl Australia out. I saw that in the World Test Championship final. There's an Australian batting lineup that's very dangerous, but it's also very vulnerable. 2 batting lineups that you look at on paper and think, they're not bad. But if the ball moves around with the way that they all throw their hands at the ball, and there's only really, if we're honest, there's only 2 or 3 players on both sides that can play forward defences properly. So if you can challenge the forward defence of both batting lineups with a bit of lateral movement, that's why it's no surprise where you see kind of clusters of wickets fall, either when England are batting or Australia batting when the ball's moving around a bit, because they play the expansive game, and there's not many of them have the basics of playing forward defensive and seeing the ball off. That's the modern game. So I'm not telling them to change because I like it. It's enjoyable. But that for me is the real key of bowling England out, and the key to bowling Australia out is getting lateral movement.
Looks like Australia's going to go through a little bit of probably a rejig of the top order ahead of this West Indies series that's coming up. As someone who's watched Marnus Labuschagne's development a lot over the last few years, would you like to see him get another chance in the West Indies, or do you think it's time for perhaps a Josh Inglis or a Sam Constance to come in to get a new team ready for this Ashes series?
There's been times in Test cricket where people have moved from the middle into the opening slot and it's worked. Justin Langer, I guess, is the perfect example. But I'm a big believer that Test match openers are born. They've kind of done it all their life. And I look at that opening burst should be players that have done it all their life. It's such a specialist skill. Putting square pegs in round holes, it might work for a short period, but long term, very rarely does that work. So I would just go straight back to Quadra and Constance. Whatever the conditions, you go out there with your opening partnership. Marnus might just need a breather. I don't think it's a bad thing in someone's career where they get taken out of the side for 2 or 3 games. It's not. It shouldn't be seemed as it's the end of your career and you're never going to get a slot back. Sometimes a player needs taken out of the firing line. Maybe it's that time where Marnus just needs a little bit of a breather. He can step back. He can kind of work it out away from the glaring eyes. And Josh Inglis looks like a player that, if I was Australia, I'd be getting him in. He's got something. You saw him play against Sri Lanka. You can see he's clearly got that little bit of mentality, and he has no baggage. I think having players that come into a side that can really play without any baggage is such a dangerous mindset to have. Look at Marnus at the minute. He's a brilliant player, and he's just going through a period where he's probably just playing for survival rather than really looking to score runs. He's probably scared of playing shots in case he gets out, and then he gets out kind of playing a timid shot rather than an aggressive stroke. And maybe he just needs a breather out the side. And I look at Cameron Green batting at 5 for Gloucester, batted at 3 for Australia. I think it's just not possible, to go to that kind of level, at the highest level against Ravada and co. when the ball's moving around. So, I think, and it's not just Australia. A lot of teams are kind of manoeuvring their batting lineups and trying funky ideas. But I'm pretty traditionalist. The top 3 in Test match cricket, they've got to be able to play properly. You don't get away with it often. Sehwag and Jayasuriya, I guess, are the perfect kind of examples of flamboyancy. And Ben Duckett, he's flamboyant, but more often than not, those that go out trying to play flamboyantly at the top of the order get quite a lot of low scores. But I personally would be going Josh Inglis into the side and giving Sam Constance a try in the West Indies.